Yeah, well, I'm going to begin by asking, if you could tell me a little bit about your character and how they fit into the story of The Corrupted.
Yeah, sure. So my character is called Grace, and she is the ex-lover of Liam. She's a single mother, and she is working hard to get out of her current situation. She's a student, and so when Liam comes out of prison, he's got a lot to answer for, a lot to answer to her about. So yeah, it's kind of her journey in it is like figuring out whether he's safe again. Yeah. It's
an amazing cast as well. To be around on set with the likes of there's Timothy Spall, Hugh Bonneville, Sam Claflin, Noel.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible, really.
It's jam-packed. I know. When I got the breakdown, I was like, you get some auditions, you're like, well, I'll give it my best shot. But it's a little bit intimidating. I have to warm up into it. I get into the makeup room and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just legends everywhere. But they're all so lovely, so it doesn't feel like it. They haven't made me feel like they're as talented and famous as they actually are. So that's good.
It's probably good.
It's probably for the best. Yeah. I would hope so. Yeah.
And so what was the initial draw when you first got the screenplay? What was it that really stood out for you that made you think I have to get involved in this project?
I think there's something we always, as a country, we always look at like corruption as a thing that's outside of England, like in terms of like corruptive police and government and stuff like that. It's something outside, and it's actually right under our noses. And there's also something. When I first did my first audition, I was talking to Ron a lot about gentrification and stuff like that, and who suffers at the hand of that. And also like all the people that just like don't get touched while all of that degradation is happening. And I think it covers a lot of those themes about misuse of power, and it's like kind of micro, macro in the sense of like you've got this family core trying to figure out what's going on, and then on this really big scale, this whole huge corruption, big corruption that was intrinsically a part of the Olympics and a lot of our property deals moving forward. Like it's like a really big part of London, really.
And are you from London? Yeah. That must be quite nice to shoot films in London, because I guess a lot of the time people are travelling all over the world, which has its own perks, but it must be nice also to be able to get the bus to work.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, like it's definitely. I'm from East London, so I know the woman I'm playing. Like I'm familiar with her. I'm friends with her. Family members are like her. I think it's just nice. It feels like I'm just I am at home. I know my area, so it's nice to do something that isn't far from home, isn't an accent. I've had to do a lot of accents in the past. I'm good at them. I can hold my own, but like it's nice being able to talk at speed and just like be really fluent and know what I'm talking about. So,
even though obviously it must be nice, like you said, to play a role that's very familiar to you, at the same time, is it sometimes even more challenging because there's more, because that type of person who you're playing, to get it completely spot on is even more pressurising than say if you're in Lady Macbeth and it's a whole world that's
like completely separate. The thing is, like Lady Macbeth it felt so much more like a character, that it was. I could really kind of step into it, whereas this, I'm like treading the boards of like living my own experience. It's an interesting new process for me, being someone closer to myself, but still trying to separate who I am and my morals, because like we share the same morals, me and Grace. So it's like trying to separate that and make those two defined things. It's really interesting, and I think I'm learning so much from this one. So it's great. It's really good.
And are you still sort of slightly taken aback by the kind of success and support of Lady Macbeth? Because even I was at the European Film Awards in Berlin, where again it was nominated and winning stuff, and I think there was a sense afterwards from William and Florence were there. It was still a bit overwhelmed by what happened.
It's mad. Yeah. It's mad, mate. Like we made it 3 years ago, the tiniest shoestring budget. everyone involved did it because they loved it. And to be quite honest, when I finished that film, for a really long time I was like, I don't know if I'm going to act again. Like there was no parts coming in. I was just like, well, I guess that's it. I do one film and then, you know, I'm back to sweeping the floors. But I'll be eternally grateful for that role. It's the things that actors dream about, of getting something where you can really show a part of yourself that you haven't previously shown, and then on top of that be able to get so much praise and so much love out of it, and also raise so much discussion about the themes of it. You know, I'm still talking about these things to groups of people now, which is like really what storytelling is about. It's like passing it on. What have we learned? What do we think about these things? So yeah, but at the same time it's like crazy. It messes your mind a little bit because it's so big.
And just finally, I saw Yardie in Berlin,
which
I loved. Obviously, what was that like working on that and having obviously working with Idris Elba with him behind the lens?
Yeah. Oh. Sorry, I shouldn't snort. Sorry. Working with Idris, he's a cool guy. I've always seen him as this huge superstar. And then to see him in person and know that he's so grounded, and it's kind of like you'd be embarrassing yourself if you made him feel like a celebrity. He was so good behind the camera. It really inspired me actually, because I want to one day be able to direct and produce and stuff. So to know that you can have all of it and still be a good person and tell wicked stories. And yeah, Yardie, I saw it a few weeks ago. We had a cast and crew screening, and so happy with the end result. So happy and proud to be a part of it. So yeah, man, Idris. I could just do that. You could be like, how's it to work with Idris? I'll be like, yeah, man, Idris.
Yeah, man, Idris.
And that's the answer.
We'll run the spider story, then the snore, and then the cut.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just wondering how this whole project came into fruition.
It was very simply a picture of a journeyman boxer on the BBC website, and it said like a professional might win 40-0. This guy does 0-40, and I was fascinated by the life of a journeyman boxer who gets a call at the last minute and 500 quid, turn up at Hackney, and go and fight. Even if you've just eaten or you've had a couple of beers, you still, and that's how he makes his living. And it started with that, and we got a writer called Nick Moorcroft to start writing and fleshing it out. And then we found out there's a load of boxing films coming. And ours was called, I think it was called The Journeyman. And I think there were about 3 others that came along, like Southpaw, and I can't remember the other ones, but anyway. But there was another one called The Journeyman. So we went, oh no. So anyway, 2.5 years later, we skewed it more towards the corruption of the land grab during the Olympic Games and all the rest of it. And then when we brought Ron Scapello on board, then it really motored, because he had a lot of background information about the Ghost Squad and a lot of first-hand knowledge, because this is his manor. So he was born and raised around here. So yeah, it sort of developed from something 2.5 years to something completely different.
So what do you think it is about that kind of story of the journeyman boxer that has that cinematic appeal? I mean, do you think is it almost quite a British thing, that kind of rooting not only for the underdog, but people that are sort of specialists at failure in some regards?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's very British. It's international. I mean, if we take Rocky, he's done it. I mean, everyone's done it. There's always that little bit of the underdog there, and you want, when you design a boxing film, he's obviously got to have a moment when he hasn't trained hard enough and he goes down and then he comes back. But this is more desperate than just a boxer. This is a guy who's been in jail for 9 years. He did something stupid when he was young, and he's missed his wife and his kid, who's 9 years old now. He's coming out, he's got to find a job, and he's got to win that family back. So this guy's really on his uppers. And then he finds out that his father was knocked off by this villain called Cullen, who's now taken him under his wing and asked him to, fight in a charity match for him.
And you must have been so thrilled to get Ron on board. I mean, I saw Offender a few years ago, that sort of prison drama, which is one of the most underrated kind of sort of British prison dramas I've seen for decades. I mean, what does he do to sort of elevate this material, and how happy were you that he signed on to this project?
I think Ron is one of those directors that I won't be able to afford very soon. There's a big buzz on him. You know, he's been flying over to the States, meeting people like Sylvester Stallone, who are all very excited. There's a big buzz on him. And we were very fortunate that he was a mate of Nick, the writer, and you know, he engaged with the subject matter straight away, and he raised the bar a couple of levels, and yeah, we were thrilled he was directing. But actually sitting next to him for 12 hours a day and watching the man work, it's extraordinary. I've worked with some good directors, but this guy is just, his vision is so clear, what he wants, it's just automatic. He's a natural filmmaker.
And some of the actors, I mean, it's an incredible calibre, but and also people that you wouldn't necessarily associate with the sort of roles they're playing. I mean, Sam Claflin and Hugh Bonneville, Timothy Spall, feels like departures for all of them. That's great, isn't it, to be able to give these actors characters they're not used to having, and great for audience members to see them in roles we're not used to seeing them in.
So the reason for that was quite simply, we were going to go for an old school film. Don't want to do the kind of Mockney gangster kind of nonsense with the wisecracking and all the rest of it. What we want to do, we wanted to capture the Long Good Friday, the Get Carters, go back to real, you know, villains. And the more intelligent they are, like the Hugh Bonnevilles and the Tim Spalls, the more frightening they are. The more cerebral the performance, rather than the hackneyed sort of delivery of, you know, I'll punch him out. So that was the plan from the get-go. And the first person we slid into the mix was Tim, because Tim attracts actors. They all want to act with him. They're all in awe of him. He's a great British actor. And he loves it. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of these guys have always wanted to play baddies. You talk to Hugh, he's always been cast as that rather sort of public school boy, nice guy, you know, Paddington and all that sort of stuff. But he jumped at the chance of playing this baddie, and he is actually the baddest of the baddies. You wouldn't believe it looking at him, but he's got some very, very dark moments.
And just finally, of course, this is a big day today. You've got one day to do a lot of boxing scenes by the sound of things. How's it? How's the stress level so far?
No, it's good. There actually isn't any stress because we've prepared, and that's what this game's all about. You know, Joe has been working with a great trainer called Barry, who has trained people like Carl Frosch, and he's just thrown his heart and soul into it. He's in great shape. He's got his six-pack. He's got great footwork. You know, he looks like a boxer. So all that is done. All we're going to do is point the cameras and off to go. There's no faking it. What you'll see down there is an extraordinary, highly trained guy who's really got himself in good shape. And in fact, he's enjoying it so much that his next film, which is about the SAS, the director's asked him to continue the training to keep that fitness and that physique. So yeah, it's been great.
I'm going to just begin by asking if you could just tell us a little bit about your character and how he fits into this this story.
My character is Detective Chief Inspector Raymond Ellery. To all intents and purposes, he's a good cop, solid cop. He's getting near to retirement, and you think he's got gravitas, he's got authority, and then as the movie goes on, you realise he's just as corrupt as everybody else. He's a baddie.
But they're always, I mean, everyone says they're fun to play. Are they fun to play, those?
Yeah, I've played baddies most of my life. With a face like mine, you don't get the romantic leads. So what do? You've just got to bite the bullet. Yeah, playing baddies is always great because you've got layers of why are people bad? What happened, you know, like say what happened to them in their youth to make them who they are and operate the way that they do, or what was the temptation that just turned them. And he's got a lovely speech that Nick has written saying, you know, it starts off with a TV set and the M2 and then, you know, one for him, one for me, and you turn a blind eye. Then it leads to a brown envelope, then it leads to something else. I mean, before you realise it, you're corrupt from top to bottom. And what's kind of good about Ellery, by the end of it, when he does his final kind of speech before he meets his demise, is he realises he's sickened by the fact that he is so corrupt, because once that web of corruption entangles you, there's no way out, there's no turning back.
And we were speaking to Naomi as well before, and just sort of mentioning about how we never really seem to see corruption as being something that is a problem in the UK. It's always something that happens in other countries. It must be fun to explore it happening from within.
London is one of the most corrupt cities in the world, I reckon. No, there's corruption going on around us all the time. We just, as you say, we're not aware of it. But no, it's lovely and it's great because it's all based around an event that happened in buying up the land to build the Olympic stadiums, you know, in East London.
And in sort of terms of research purposes, does it make it quite difficult to research this kind of world when corruption, generally speaking, is kind of underground? You know, it's not something that we kind of know too much about. So when it comes to trying to understand all of the kind of ins and outs of this world you're inhabiting, has that been a bit of a struggle at times?
No, not at all. I think corruption is fairly easy to understand. It's just greed and an abuse of power. And I think that happens in all walks of life. It happens on a movie set, it happens in the Houses of Westminster Parliament. No, corruption is all around us, to a greater or lesser degree.
And just one very final question. You obviously worked with Timothy before, worked with him on Finding Your Feet, which is obviously the same screenwriter as well. It must be great to be teaming up with him again on this one.
Tim and I have known each other for, over 30 years. I've directed him on stage, I've directed him on telly, we've acted together. We did Finding Your Feet together, and we've yet to come out as we both of us played two of the ringleaders in the Hatton Garden safety deposit box robbery, which is due out on ITV fairly shortly. And we played good pals in that. So, no, it's a joy to work. Then he's such a wonderful actor. I mean, he's liquid gold. You just watch him and you think, oh, wow, nailed it. I'm jealous.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,